Hey there, it's Ken Rohla with Fresh and Alive, and I was talking to my friend Irlianna the other day about what was going on astrologically, and I got to thinking, hey, it's probably about time to do an astrological update for 2020, at least the early 2020. So
I know it's been a year. Can you believe it was a year ago?
Wow,
time flies.
Wow. We're definitely due for an update. So what's going on?
Just in time for it's perfect timing, really.
Perfect astrological reading for the holidays.
Yeah, right. Well, you know, the big deal for coming up for 2020, and a lot of astrologers are talking about it, and a lot of people. It's there's an epic conjunction. A conjunction means a lineup, you know, like planets holding hands with each other, walking together. A conjunction is the most powerful aspect in astrology. So the aspect that we're all looking at that's epic is the planet Saturn and Pluto are conjunct, meaning together, in the sign of Capricorn. And this only happens about every 38 years or so. Now, what's special about this particular one is that Saturn and Pluto and the Sun and Mercury are all going to line up exactly at 22 degrees of Capricorn. It'll be exactly on January 12th, 2020, which is a Sunday, which is like just when you're getting ready to watch, you know, afternoon football. Guess what? There's a bigger game going on. No, and what does this mean? You know, what does this mean for society? What does this mean for us? It's really big, and you know, I won't sugarcoat it, but I'm going to say it's definitely going to be a challenge, and it depends on how you look at it and where your level of consciousness is at, because it's definitely going to reveal itself. You know, like they always say, people reveal themselves when the stuff hits the fan. Well, there's going to be some epic changes. If you could boil it down to two words, I have you could say regime change for one. You could also say paradigm shift, because both of them apply. And, you know, and obviously we've been seeing this happening now, you know, very clearly in the news headlines. All you have to do is look at, you know, the headlines, and, you know, with Trump and the impeachment proceedings and, you know, process and all of that, and you know, because Pluto rules the dark side and the pain body and corruption. And when it's in the sign of Capricorn, as it has been for the last 10, 11 years, it's showing us where there is corruption in government, in society, you know, what are old ways of being that no longer work. And so a year from now is going to be Jupiter and Saturn. Jupiter is the planet of expansion, and Saturn, interesting, the planet of contraction, but hard work and discipline. They're going to come together in the sign of Aquarius, really, like just literally a year from now, December 2020. So a lot of people see that as the beginning of the Aquarian age, you know, so, you know, this heralded age. And, you know, you could very well argue that point. However, before we get there, we have to, you know, completely purge and let go of old systems, ways of thinking, old realities that we have long adhered to that no longer serve us. So you're going to see in the next 12 months, especially a very big resounding call in January, where things that have not been working really do, you know, it's a time of, it's an epic shakedown, I would say. And now we got a little preview of this back in April, because Saturn and Pluto got pretty close, and the south node, which is a point, the lunar node, it's a point on the ecliptic, that came very close with Saturn and Pluto, and that definitely has to do with karma, the chickens coming home to roost, you know, those kinds of things. And what did we see? Well, visually, the most startling was when we saw Notre Dame. Notre Dame, like literally fell. It took about 300 years to build, and that came down in like 62 minutes. The roof, literally, like think of the metaphor, the roof caved in. So these large institutions like the Vatican, and, you know, Saturn also rules corporations. So anything that's like really big, and things that have always been deemed, you know, too big to fail, you know, that quote, that line, you know, these are things that we're seeing falling. And you know, karma, yeah. I mean, look at all the corruption that in the, you know, the child sex abuse cases and all that have plagued the Vatican for years, and now it's like it's this coming due. You know, it's time to pay the piper. So no, it's very interesting how that was a visual of that. So we saw that in April. And then Saturn and Pluto kind of went retrograde, so they kind of got a little space between themselves over the summer and the fall. Then they started coming back together, and now they're very, very close, and they're going to be exactly at 22 degrees January 12th. So that's why we know that this is definitely a time for change and epic change. So
you say January 12th, there's like a pivotal moment that there's going to be a lot of stuff happening? Paradigm shift,
yeah. So, you know, what that looks like in, you know, out in the society, definitely government, you know, a regime change. You know, we could see Trump either, you know, if not impeached, certainly some other kind of shakeup. You know, impeachment doesn't mean removal, it means a trial. So he could be impeached, but he might also leave office, he might resign. You know, it's not up to, no one person could ever make that kind of a, you know, prediction. I mean, I've looked at his chart, and you know, it's definitely getting challenged for sure. However, it really depends on the consciousness, you know, our collective consciousness as to what direction we want things to go. But it's really and where this occurs in your own birth chart too. You know, you look in your chart and you'll see where does 22 degrees of Capricorn fall. If it's in your, you know, is it in your 10th house? That means your career would be completely overhauled. If it's in your 7th house, it might be if you're in a marriage or a partnership, that would be, you know, a new base of reality, a new one that's really based on integrity. And, you know, and I would say, too, the rise of the divine feminine is very key to this playing out with, you know, the divine feminine, the matriarchy versus the toxic patriarchy that has, you know, run our society and Western society for so long. You know, the last time, this is the final, this is a very big changeover because Pluto and Saturn, I've got to keep my planets together. The last time we saw this is, you know, in the sign of Capricorn, it's an earth sign. And so this is the end of about 180, 200 year cycle. And the last time, that was about roughly 1820. Well, you know, astrology is about cycles of time. And if you think about it, it really, it's pretty fascinating to look back in history and see what happened, because that gives us clues. So I heard somebody today on Twitter saying, you know, history doesn't repeat itself, but it damn well rhymes. So I thought, and so you can use these time periods and you can look back and it will give us clues. So what happened in 1820? Well, that was a time period where the U.S., for example, colonial expansion, right? The genocide of the Native American population really got underway. And of course, slavery was coming on. Had already been there, but you know, it just everything up the ante, and the genocide of the westward expansion that took place. And so now what we're seeing dying is that whole colonialist entitlement attitude, you know, the white European paradigm, and that's a huge paradigm shift. Yeah. And what do we see? The rise of the native peoples, indigenous wisdom. You know, we are seeing that we don't see people running to join the Catholic Church. We see people who are running to embrace shamanic traditions, you know, indigenous peoples. This is an outrageous renaissance. So as the old falls away, the new is coming up. And natural health as well. Natural health. Some people are flocking to natural health in droves more than ever. And yet, you could be very busy. You know, yeah, it's starting to. But you know, it's interesting because Google and YouTube have been shadow banning us for the last year, and that has really
limited our traffic and our exposure. And so we're right now working on compensating, getting onto other video channels and stuff like that. So for folks watching, we'll be migrating to Vimeo soon, and as of December 2019, and probably other channels as well. But it's really, we're going back to old marketing techniques rather than relying on social media and that kind of stuff. Because, for example, Fresh and Live is actually banned on social media. You can't even post any links of our content. They won't let it happen.
Wow.
So that's definitely creating a paradigm shift for us and a big challenge. And so it makes me wonder if this like January 12th date in that time period, if there's not also going to be maybe financial restructuring going on, because the United States has been increasingly alienating other countries, even Europe now, and I mean the EU, not just European individual countries, China, Russia, on and on. And so these countries, particularly China, are not bailing us out like they used to, and so the U.S. is getting very desperate. For folks that aren't aware, the United States is pretty much bankrupt, and so how do you see that affecting the economy?
Well, interesting you say that, because in the chart of the USA, so there are birth charts for countries, and we are a Cancer country in the U.S. because July 4th the sun was in Cancer. Well, when our country was formed in 1776, Pluto was in the sign of Capricorn, which is where it is now. It was at 27 degrees. So we are only 5 degrees away from a conjunction. And that is what's called a Pluto return, which means in astrology, that means that in this case, Pluto has come back, has returned to the place it was when we had the United States founded. So this is a huge turning point. No country has been around this long, so nobody's old. You'd have to be 248 years old to remember the last one. So nobody has seen this. So it's a very an amazing time to be alive, because there's no we don't have the playbook for this. It's all, but it does function on consciousness. It's where are we as a consciousness. So our consciousness determines the shift, and I find that it's interesting. We could also be seeing more earth changes, volcanic eruptions and such, and earthquakes. But when you look at what that is, we are connected to the cosmos. So it's the shift in consciousness that creates the earth changes, these things. So as we shift and shift more, we are going to be seeing, like you were saying, the money system, the Federal Reserve, or things like that. You could be seeing reforms or just a complete restructuring along more the alignment with real values and integrity. So wherever integrity has been missing, and obviously it's been grossly missing, in not just our government, but every government. Brexit, if you read people in the UK, they're going through the same things that we're going through, So, when you see this, this is an enormous societal collective thing that knows no boundaries of country or gender or nationality. It's just this humongous epic shift. But it will definitely, Pluto rules the wealth of the earth. So, what it's asking us is, well, what do we find? What's really our wealth? Is it really money in the bank? Maybe there's new ways, a new structure of money and exchange, like barter, for example. I think barter is going to really come to the fore in the days, months, and years to come. The old way, right? Going back, you were saying earlier, go back to the old ways. Things that are regenerative. The idea of billionaires that are paying zero tax and milking more and more, taking all the profits and giving very little to the middle class, or if there is a middle, that whole thing, that's not sustainable. Right. So, how long do you go on with that? Well, you don't. As you create a society that is a transformed society, there is no place for that, the lack of integrity. So if something leaves your life, if we take this down to our personal lives, if something is leaving ruining your life, and we're upset about it, you have to just be in faith and trust and go with the flow. And even if your logical mind thinks, oh, this shouldn't be, just, what's important for us to cultivate in the next 12 months is to have that sense of faith and trust, cultivate that within ourselves, and then, take that out into the world and just know that it's not being done to us, it's being done for us.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. And that reminds me very much of that. Our experience is what we interpret. As they say in Landmark, it's you create stories around what is, and so for most people, what is their interpretation of what's going on, not what really is. And so a lot of this, it's not all doom and gloom because. For example, the Navy just released patents on free energy technology and anti-gravity technology, actually flying saucer technology. They have actually applied for patents publicly for those technologies. And so, on the one hand, yes, the old paradigm will be going away, but going forward, we'll have a lot of very beneficial things as the old methods, the old ways, the old institutions die off. New things will come in their place that are better and will be much more sustainable, I think, in the long run. So how do you see that going down? Like, what good things do we have to look forward to?
Yeah, thank you. So the sustainability that's key. It's like fossil fuels, things that have, plastics in the ocean, the things that, the wasteful consciousness that we've had, all of that it's time for that to be completely disengaged. And it's sustainable technologies, solar panels, wind farms, biodynamic farming, all of these things that sustain and renew the earth. That's where we want to be looking. That's where you want to put your, if you're a venture capitalist, man, that you do not want to be, forget the oil, just put that aside and just, what do they say, focus on what's building the new rather than, fighting the old. Just put your energies and your focus on what's important and what will regenerate and sustain. On a spiritual level, Pluto and Capricorn would be about tapping into the wealth of our ancestors, because Capricorn, that's the ancestors, and that's our lineage, our spiritual lineage, our family lineage. So cultivating a deeper, profound relationship, if we have none, it would be definitely the time to do that with our ancestors and the wealth of the earth. These are really huge. This is a very different way for many people of looking at things. But I will say that the danger would be in insisting in staying stuck in old patterns, because we, like the earth and consciousness, the collective consciousness, just can't finance that anymore, about being rigid and stuck, and so where we can start is with our own selves, in our own belief systems, our own reality structures. And like you were saying, your stories, the stories that you have that are probably, many of which are probably running you that you're not even aware of.
Oh, yeah.
That's the big...
I think that's the way most people operate. Most people are operating as, we both take a Landmark. We've done some work on that to identify what our stories are, but everybody basically creates stories around their reality, and then they live as if those stories are true when they're not. That's a very subjective
it's a made-up story.
Interpretation of what's really going on.
Yeah, it's really fascinating when you do that shadow work and you see Pluto is the shadow. Pluto is the shadow. It's the pain body. So this is the time when we're taking down this subconscious programming that has run us and limited us and kept us in this kind of bondage. So this is a very exciting time to be able to be focused and really go within and take care of those things. As we do that for ourselves, then our families heal. I mean, it's like the lineage there's a woman called Yoga Girl. She's written a memoir. I don't remember the name of it, but you could probably Google it. And there's this wonderful, I didn't read the whole book, I just read this excerpt, and she did a ceremony with a cacao shaman in, I believe it was Costa Rica, but she talked about how she healed these generations of family, very, very toxic family lineage, alcoholism and what have you, going back generations and generations. And as she, I'm just getting chills saying this, as she healed that, it healed there is no time, right? So you heal the past and you heal the future.
Right.
And it's really phenomenal how that she can, she closed that broken record, you could say, for all eternity. And it's interesting because the new movie, Tom Hanks plays Mr. Rogers,
right.
and I saw it, and you got to see it. It's fabulous.
Yeah.
And what is it about? Healing. It's a true story, healing family karma. The journalist that interviewed him and all the toxic relationship he had and the reasons he had to hate his dad and be right about ignoring him and shutting him out of his life. And, he got to see that and heal. And the story and what he came up against, you must see it. It's so timely with this conjunction.
I actually got to meet Mr. Rogers back in the 70s. I was living in North Carolina, and he was at a celebrity tennis tournament, and he was exactly in real life like he is on television. Right? He was just the sweetest, kindest guy.
Yeah.
And
you got that. He was like a saint. People even said
he really was.
I think he really was an old soul.
Exactly. I was like 17 or something when I met him, and when I met him, I thought. Before I met him, I thought, oh, this is just an act, but it is not an act.
No,
that guy was a really sweet, loving person, and he really, the older that I get, the more that I look back at what he was and what he represented and marvel at it, because, he testified before Congress. He did a lot of interesting things. So anyway, but
that's a great example of, that's our role model. I mean, really, be like Mr. Rogers, So, look out for your neighbor, look out for one another, go beyond whatever the stuckness that you've had and needing to be right about how wrong they were. It's like to just disengage that machinery, because it gets you nowhere. What, you're going to pass that on to your kids?
Right.
So,
and don't be snarky on social media.
Right.
Leave nice comments.
We don't need trolls anymore. Exactly. I hope that when January, it would be nice to not have trolls. Like, that's the pain body, Or if you see a troll or something. There was somebody trolled me the other day and made these, I was just celebrating the rest in peace George Harrison. The anniversary of his passing was 18 years ago. So I just made this nice comment, and I got all these, some of them, many people were very nice, but a few people just were nasty. And I'd said all these really mean conversations, about, because they were very religious fundamentalists, and they didn't like him. But it's like, okay, well, what's my choice? Well, I didn't write back. I'm not going to engage that energy. I was just compassionate, because I know that
anyone. That's the thing. We can disagree and still be loving to each other. We don't have to, we don't have to hate each other and be nasty to each other if we disagree. I've got all kinds of friends with all kinds of different beliefs. I've got employees that don't hold the same beliefs that I do, and that's fine.
Yeah,
we love each other anyway. It doesn't matter, because we're probably all wrong. It's like
we're probably all wrong.
We probably are. I mean, when you think about it in the grand scheme of the universe, for us to really understand the nature of things is like an amoeba trying to understand a '57 Chevy. That's one of my my favorite analogies. Is like it has no frame of reference to, and we don't really have. We're three-dimensional physical beings, and even though we're multidimensional, we don't have the frame of reference, I don't think, to understand everything. And so we probably are all wrong, and we're just creating these metaphors to describe our reality. No!
It's all a joke.
I'm right! So anyway, well, any other thoughts you have about what's coming our way?
There's a whole bunch of, I'm going to be talking more about this more in depth, breaking this conversation down, more in depth, and and different ramifications on my podcast, Starsound Speaks. So iTunes and Spotify, Starsound Speaks. But yeah, I would say you definitely go check out, get your birth chart and look and see where this conjunction lies, because that is where you'll see, and there's an amazing transformation that's waiting for each of us, depending on what area of the chart it lies in, is the area of your life that's really going to be the foundation for this transformation. So it is really, it is something to look forward to, even though, yes, we'll have to be in trust. It can be a kind of a scary ride. The Saturn and Pluto are not the, it's not the cozy planets, but it's always for our, not the warm, fuzzy.
I want a cozy planet, please.
Yeah, I know. Like we're also, but look at that. We're also addicted to comfort and not wanting to look, it's like, who wants to, the ego gets crazy, but.
So basically for the people that dive in and move forward and are proactive in their lives, they'll be having a much easier time than people that are trying to hang on to the past and to the
being
old.
Right. Yeah. Hanging on to being right. If you want to really put it in Eckhart Tolle's words, when he wrote, and I would definitely reread the A New Earth, the Eckhart Tolle, amazing book, of course, and he basically breaks it down. Now we're at this, literally, astrologically, we're at the junction that he talked about. He didn't talk about astrology, but he talked about consciousness. And he said, evolve or die. Like, that's where we're at. So if you want to hang on and be right, it's going to cost you. Now the ante is going to get upped. So it'll really cost you your health, and it could cost you your life. I mean, really, like he said, evolve or die.
And even if it costs you your life, you're still going to have to evolve.
Yeah,
So you might as well go ahead and evolve.
So yeah, you might as well evolve, right? And everyone benefits when we make that effort. It ripples out. It's not just family lineage that changes. It's everything, and it'll surprise us that so there are definitely gems waiting for us that are available, and we will. I will say one thing, Ken. We will definitely have to work. Nothing's gonna land in our lap where we don't work for it. Next year it will definitely be about, don't pray for it if you're not willing to work for it. So the work will create a reward. Saturn is, I always say, it's the drill sergeant of the zodiac. So it demands us to be responsible, to get back in integrity, and to really a real reality check. But when you do your boot camp of work, you get rewarded at the end of 10 weeks of boot camp. You've got that, you're good, and so you've earned something. And then once you've been through that hard, you look back and you're like, wow, that was really hard. I worked my butt off, but you're stronger for it, and others benefit. So.
Yeah, it seems like that's already started for me. I'm definitely having to put the work in to get the results that came much more easily in the past. So I can see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's definitely, and the rewards, we're in a harvest time like this. Think of 2020, it's kind of like when I've been doing these talks live at workshops, and 2020 a look ahead, and the image I use is it's a beautiful picture of the various stages of a butterfly in a cocoon. The first cocoon, it's green and it's completely opaque. The second, the intermediate stage, is the cocoon has now become this like a cellophane. You can see through it. It's transparent, and you can see the monarch butterfly colors inside of the wings. And then the third is the butterfly is out of his cocoon. So if you think of it like that, that's a really good visual. If we need to lock onto that, seeing the cocoon, this is a time where we pull in, cut out anything non-essential, really go within, do that work for ourselves. The middle ground, we're still in it, and it's working. And then at the very end, I don't know if anyone knows how a butterfly emerges from the cocoon. It's actually the hardest part is this. They have to squeeze themselves through this little hole. And when it does that, the water that's in the cocoon, it gets squeezed out. So that squeezing codex here, is part of the process. So that is what enables them to expand, and then the wings are perfect and they can fly. So embrace that. It's giving us something. It's giving.
So basically, you got to get squozed to get woke.
You got to get squozed to get woke, right? Okay. Ken roll a rap. All right. You know. Between rap records, DJ, those sneakers, the checkerboard sneakers.
I don't know if you guys can see that.
Oh, the Mr. Rogers. Please won't you be my... So yeah, there you go.
Well, I guess then, is there anything else before we wrap it up?
If you like this video, and if you have any questions, everyone can always email me. Starsoundastrology.com is my email address. Email address Irlianna@starsoundastrology.com. And just go to the site and send an email through there. I'm on podcast. I love to talk about this, and we'll be talking more about it. So we're all there for each other. Let's all band together and be there for each other.
That brings up a good point. It seems to me like the paradigm is definitely shifting in my life toward more collaboration and cooperation. So are the energies supporting that?
Oh, absolutely. Because when you get when Jupiter and Saturn enter Aquarius in December of 2020, Aquarius is the sign, that's the collective, that's progress, that's tribe consciousness, the benefit of humanity, so yeah, absolutely. We're moving in that direction, and it's just that this year could feel like that squeeze of the butterfly through that, things are going to get very still, and we have to keep our focus and keep moving ahead. And yes, it will be. It is about collaboration. The old paradigm is competition.
Right.
We've had the 200 years in the Earth sign, Capricorn, colonialism. The genocidal expansion of America. This I'm gonna clobber you to get ahead. And I got this land. Isn't that wonderful? Yeah, but you massacred millions of Indians. There was a cost. So now we're seeing this big picture, and yeah, we're all about collaboration and not where it's going to cost someone's life. Please, I think we've had enough of that pain body around the world, and now we get to heal that.
Exactly. All right. So you heard it. Collaborate, cooperate, love each other. Things will work out better.
And wear checkerboard sneakers. When all else fails, checkerboard sneakers.
Exactly. All right. So remember, starsoundastrology.com. Irlianna Samsara, thank you so much again.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And we'll catch up with you again when we got more juicy influences headed our way.
Yay! Excellent.
All right. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.